The Division was a good game, but it certainly wasn't perfect. Just like a lot of games though, it got much better down the line after multiple updates. Progression tweaks, new game modes led to a fantastic improvement in the game over the last year. Sadly, I didn't really experience the updates because I stopped playing The Division quite some time ago. It just didn't have enough endgame content there to keep me interested. And while the first game has improved leaps and bounds over the past year, we're now getting our first look at the sequel, The Division 2. At this year's E3 we got to see a small amount of gameplay and I was able to get hands on and capture myself for around 10 to 20 minutes, and I've already posted some of that gameplay with raw first impressions and ideas, but today I've got some more for you and I've scoured the internet and managed to get all of the information on the game that I possibly could, so let's get everything covered then, shall we? First up, it goes without saying, this game looks amazing. I'd say the visuals have definitely improved from the first game, and that already looked great. The lighting looks gorgeous, the animations are great, and I got to play this at 4K on PC with no performance issues, so strong showing there. I think that Ubisoft have learnt their lesson from when they first revealed The Division, and I imagine that this footage is very representative of what we'll see when the game launches, maybe even a bit better, because this was real gameplay, I was playing it, and damn, it just looks so good. The first big change that you'll notice with the second game is the setting. It actually got leaked a few days before E3 thanks to a poster in the venue, of all things, that showed off a few iconic monuments from Washington DC, and that's a vastly different environment than the urban jungle of New York from the first game. And while I loved New York, I do think that Washington could offer a good blend of different environments that perhaps the first game simply couldn't. There also seems to be a big season change. In the first game we were in New York in the winter and the snow, and snowstorms really played a big part of the aesthetic. In the second game that seems to have shifted to the summer, more daytime perhaps, or at least warmer months. There's a lot more colour and saturation here. So the game is set around 7 months after the first game, and at this point the virus has all but been burnt out, and it's more about the factions trying to rebuild civilization and the conflicts that different groups and gangs will inevitably have with each other in a situation like that. From the gameplay we got to see a few interesting parts of the new world. There was an overgrown zoo that could be a really cool place to explore. We saw the Capitol building in the background, although the gameplay abruptly ended before we could go deep into Washington DC, and we also saw Air Force One. In fact, the mission that we played had you fighting around that plane, and we got a cheeky glimpse of the inside. But with just this small gameplay snippet you can already sense that the environments in this game compared to the first one are a bit more complex, more variation in the levels, and I really hope that that continues throughout the game. I did mention this in my last video too, but there are so many cool buildings and monuments that they could add here. The Smithsonian, the Pentagon, or perhaps even the White House. I think we've seen the White House in fact in one of the concept arts or screenshots for the game. So I played through the entirety of the first game's campaign in co-op with some friends when it released, and what first struck me is just how amazing and detailed the world was. The New York environment was just packed full of fantastic detail, better than I've seen in any other game in fact. The Snowdrop engine that's powering the game is a phenomenal piece of kit. That being said, one thing that I didn't enjoy all that much was the missions. The actual story missions themselves just felt a bit bland and underwhelming to me. It was very much go here, kill some bullet sponge enemies with no real mechanics to speak of, rinse and repeat. At least that's what it felt like to me. I think if there was a little bit more variety it would have broken up the game a bit more. There was definitely some missed opportunities as I mentioned in the previous video. Now the game also gave me no reason really to stick around afterwards. The endgame content was very lacking, unless you count the Dark Zone, which just got very repetitive. So endgame content is apparently something that the devs of the game are really focused on this time around. That being said, I think with the first game, the core mechanics, the shooting, the movement, the animations, the sound, it was all spot on. The core of the game was excellent. It just needed a bit more inspiration and excitement in the gameplay mechanics. So ultimately, when it comes to The Division 2, that's what I hope that they address the most. They need more variety in the gameplay that blends well with the incredible environments that they've made here. If they can match those two together, then they will have a fantastic game, but that's a big if. So what other things did I manage to find then? Well, we know that the initial level cap of the game is 30, but once you hit it, you will be able to choose a specialization, And these work as sort of a subclass, and they give the player the ability to unlock new skills once you hit the max level and have completed the campaign. Each one is centered around a certain weapon type: sniper, grenade launcher and crossbow. So it's important to note that while your specialization is based around these, that doesn't exclude you from using the other weapons. The idea is to give players their own personal playstyle and then combine that with your teammates to create a balanced squad. Now, Ubisoft have said that they've revamped the Dark Zone PvP, but they haven't said anything beyond that. So just quite what they've done to change it up, we don't know right now. The Dark Zone was always a bit of a weird place for me in the first game. I get what they were trying to do with it, but it never really quite lived up to its potential. Down the line, Survival and Last Stand were added, which were welcomed, but I think that they really need a big overhaul of the PvP. But that's just my take on it. A good start perhaps would be increasing the max player count of the Dark Zone, because it was pretty low in the first game. But one of the lead devs on the game, Matthias Carlson, he works for Massive Entertainment, said that they are super committed to PvP and that it's going to be a big and important part of the Division 2. So let's see what they do with it. Of course, there is that Battle Royale rumour for the game that just won't go away, and interestingly, Massive polled the internet about a year ago asking if they'd like to see a Battle Royale mode in the Division, so I'd love to see if this is a real thing and whatever they came up with. Moving on, this time around though, the Division 2, we're getting what everyone always wanted, I think, since the beginning of the first game: raids. These are going to be big co-op missions that will apparently offer a true challenge to even the most expert of players. And get this, they're made for 8 players, so that's a big mission hopefully. This is a first for the Division franchise, although they have added Incursions previously, which a lot of people thought was going to be the Division's answer to raids. That turned out not to be the case, and Incursions was just really another relatively bland, uninventive mission. So I really hope that they put some real thought and design into the raids, because that could be the content that players keep coming back for, especially when you tie the loot into it. I mean, just look at Destiny though. I personally think that the raids are the best and most interesting parts of that game, and some of the work that goes into them and the hype that it creates when a new one launches is epic. So Ubisoft have said that they're planning years of content for the Division 2, so we could in fact see multiple raids added down the line. I would like to see some at launch though too. Now what's more, Ubi have confirmed that all 3 of the major DLCs in Year 1 will be free, and that's a big change from the first game, because you had to buy the post-launch DLC pack separately or buy the Season Pass, and it seems like a lot of companies are now moving away from that model, as there's been a big change recently in Season Passes and the way that companies handle their DLC. I think the whole market is shifting. From what I understand though, Ubisoft never stated that all future content would be free, so there might be a possibility that certain things could change down the line, and perhaps they might also offer some cosmetic items that you can buy with real money, because that just seems to be the trend these days. That being said, 3 major DLCs for free is fantastic to see, and I'm all for that. Now the sign-ups for the beta have already gone live on the official Ubisoft website, so if you want to get your hands on it and give it a test run, you better get signed up for it soon for a chance to get a key. The game doesn't release until March 2019 though, so there's still plenty of time to wait until the release. And if you were hoping that your character from the first game will carry over, sadly it will not. So all in all, I think that I'm cautiously optimistic for the Division 2. Ubisoft say they're committed to building upon the first game and ironing out some of the issues that players faced the first time around. They've proven that over the last year or so that they've worked really hard with the community and given them a lot of the features and content that they wanted. And I already feel that the new setting could offer up more varied gameplay opportunities, and the idea of an 8-player raid is really interesting to me. So I definitely look forward to hearing more about that before the game is released next year. There needs to be more to keep players like me coming back though after the story is done, and I hope that's the case. If they keep their promise, I think they might be on the right track here. And that's all for today guys. A big thanks to Ubisoft for sponsoring this video. They let me play the game early and record it, of course. It's always cool to be invited to those kind of events and make this kind of content. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.